itself. Could you talk about that?
Yeah, from 1969 through 72, there was a gang war in South Boston. The Mullins, which I was one, fought the Colleens, who were the organized crime group in South Boston. The Colleens lost, but Whitey was one of them. There was three Colleen brothers. They all got killed. Whitey survived. What happened was I was calling the shots with the Mullen gang at that point, and I said it's time to make peace with all this. I mean, eventually some of us are going to get killed. So let's reach out and see what Whitey wants to do, which he, ironically, he was looking for someone to help him, and no one would help him. So he wanted peace too, because no one would go against us at that point. Not out of fear, but out of friendship. We were friends with too many people. He didn't make friends. He wasn't that type of guy. But we got together at a bar called Chandler's in the South in the South End, and the Martiranos and Howie Winter, they set it up so there'd be no treachery. And Whitey showed up, and I showed up with two friends, and we sat there all afternoon, and we discussed everything. And we decided how we were going to cut the town up. Basically, we formed a partnership, me and Whitey, and he had worked for the Colleens, so he knew the inside structure of who was doing the horses, dogs, numbers, the loan shark, and so me and him went around so they could see that we were together now, and told them they were working for us now, which they did. We took over everything. And it was very lucrative, a lot more than I thought. The first time we went to get our money, you'd pick up your end every Monday. We'd go to a place called The Office, which was kept a secret, that location. You'd make sure you weren't being followed. And no one really knew who the office workers were. You didn't want the police following them. And there was money on the table, stacks of money. Money that were going out to the bettors who won, money that were going to the agents, money that were going to certain people who helped protect what was going on, and then our end. And our end was the biggest end. I didn't realize that till that first week we went there. At a certain point in that, I went to jail for IRA activities to Valhalla. So when I got out, I hooked up with some good friends who were robbing armored trucks, and I went with them. I got into the armored truck robbing business, and Whitey never knew that until I got caught. He was as shocked as I was that day, because at that point I had pulled away from him, and I had told the IRA and one guy in Charlestown to stay away from him. He was an informant. I knew it for certain at that point, which would have been 89 and 90. Yeah.
You were very good at trucks, robbing trucks. I remember you telling me, and I was very impressed with the level of expertise, the planning and preparation to robbing manned armored trucks.
I hate to give away secrets, but our technology is old. What we would do was we stayed away from the cities. There's too many law enforcement in and out of uniform in the cities. So if you're trying to rob a truck in the city, you don't know who's watching you, who's going to jump out on you. We would go out in the suburbs and ride around randomly, and we'd see these small little companies, armored truck companies, and we'd follow them. We might follow them 2 or 3 stops one day, show up again the next day, a little bit more, a little bit more. What we were trying to do was find their central offices is called the barn. It's always called the barn. And in that place, it's a very secure building. And if they say they have it's a 10-truck company, well, they all show up there at night for the night, and they go home. The cleaning crew comes in sometimes after midnight. And now, if it was a small town, we'd be hiding in an alleyway. If it was a wooded area, we'd be hiding in the woods. We'd watch the cleanup crew and how they brought out the trash. And if they put it in the dumpster, an unsecured dumpster, then after they left, and we were timing the cops, the local cops, when they would go around and stuff, because the dumpster's not bugged, and the cameras weren't really big back then. We'd send one guy over, he'd climb in the dumpster, pull the clothes, have a little flashlight, and he'd go through the trash bags. They didn't shred anything back then. And we'd get the trip sheets. He'd get the trip sheets for that day, and we'd go study them, because they think it's trash, it's gone. But we're studying the trip sheets. It tells you the number of the truck leaving the barn in the morning, how much money it has on it, all the stops it makes, what it drops off and what it picks up. As a general rule, if they leave with like $2 million on the truck in the morning, they'll come back that night with around the same amount from drop-offs and pickups. I don't know how they make money out of it, but so we knew which trucks were fat. We call them fat. If the truck was fat, it means a lot of money. And then we'd go to all the stops they'd make and look for a place that certain things you need. You need them to pull in like here, and you're over here parked in the van, all on the floor. The only one showing is the driver. And we'd have another guy over here with binoculars. He'd watch the truck. We have walkie-talkies. And when they got out, what you want is the driver and the messenger, the second guy, to be at the same door. They got a back door and a side door. You want them both to be in that area at the same time. And then we'd attack. There'd usually be four of us. The driver would say, go, and we'd slide the door, and we'd come out. We were armed. And we'd charge the truck, and they don't react quick enough. They never did. They're shocked that you're even coming. They don't know how to react to it. You know, they look, but they don't know what to do. And if, say I was the first guy, I wouldn't even bother with the guy outside. I'd dive right in the truck after the driver and get him on the floor and get him back behind the wheel, drag him. And the other guys would grab the second guy and throw him back in the truck. We would disarm him, and we'd cuff the second guy. But the driver, I'd get behind the wheel, and I'd duck down underneath the dashboard and put a pistol under his ribs and say, go. And I'd be peeking over, because we already knew we wanted to bring the truck. The bank's going to see you do it. Someone's going to see you do it. So the call's going to go in. That's all right. You get about 10 minutes. We'd find a place where you could take a left or right, get in back of a high-rise building. And in the meantime, while I'm doing that, making the driver go there, the other three guys, they cuffed the other guy already, took his pistol and unloaded it. And we'd have hockey bags. You can carry 2 hockey bags each full of money. Anything more than that, it gets awkward, you get clumsy, and it's heavy. Money is heavy. We'd load up all the hockey bags, get to the first spot, then I'd put the driver on the floor, cuff him to the seat stanchion so he couldn't peek over the dashboard as we left. And it's kind of hard to hop out of an armored truck with there's 4 of us with 2 hockey bags each with masks on and look like you're not doing anything. And we'd walk to where the first van was. If there was a fence, we could down an alleyway, we'd have the van down there, and we'd all climb in on the floor again, and the guy would drive away. That van was stolen, so we didn't care if anyone seen it, but it's best if they didn't. As we're driving along, we'd change. We'd pull off our jumpsuits, and underneath we'd have shirts and ties. We'd have sports coats in the van, and we'd put those on, our suit coat, whatever you were wearing that day. And we would take off our masks but keep our gloves on. We'd pack all that in the bag. And we'd go to the second van, which we'd try to find an isolated area. We'd all hop out of the first van, get in the second van with everything. So now there's less people that know what you're doing, in the sense that they're all looking for the first van. And we'd torch that. We'd have gasoline and road flares, and we'd torch the van for any forensics that might be in there. And we'd leave in the second van. From the second van, we'd get dropped off one at a time. We had an old guy that would take the money in the trunk because no one paid any attention to him. Just an old guy with an old shitty car, but it was well run and everything. He'd take the money and a lot of times the weapons in his trunk and just drive. A lot of times he'd drive right past the scene of the robbery because they weren't expecting that. He's just an old guy, no one pays attention. And we'd get in our legitimate cars. And we never went back to Boston because the first thing the FBI and the state police do is get on every main entrance when they get that call to Boston, and they know who's who, and they just sit there looking who's coming back into Boston. Guys that got caught like that. We'd go to New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine. We'd go north, all different directions, and we'd stay away from each other for 3 or 4 days. And then we'd go to one central house, which was usually in New Hampshire, up in the North Conway area. We usually kept a chalet up there. What was the bar we used to meet at? Horse Feathers? Is that still up there? Yeah. We used to meet at a bar called I think it's Horse Feathers. and not Conway. And we'd eat, we'd have a few beers, and the guy that had the chalet would say, how much? And he'd tell us how much, because he'd spend 3 or 4 days counting it, you know. And so we'd just relax, have a few beers, enjoy ourselves, and we'd all go back to the chalet. It was, shit. There was different resorts up there that had there was one place we used for Christmas Tree Farm, I think. We stayed in a place near there. And there was different places that had a whole bunch of chalets in them. I forget the names of them, Alpine, they had all those kind of names. And we just, we split up, you know, we split up, because it's all banded real nice, $5,000 and $10,000 bundle, so it was easy to split up. And we'd all get our share and leave at different times. Not all at the same time and not all the same day. You know, and just go where you're going. And we didn't hang around together in Boston. We'd get together quietly, but we didn't go out every night socializing. We didn't go to track, we didn't gamble. Worst thing you could do was buy new cars right away. That was a big no-no. We wouldn't work with guys like that. Dress like this. You might go home with $400,000 or $500,000 your end. Don't be going out buying suits and gold and bling and all that shit. We wouldn't do that. And if you were like that, we didn't want you around us. Take trips. Once you're overseas, you can do what the hell you want to do, you know. But we try to be conservative in our actions. And a lot of people didn't know we were doing it until we got caught, because we didn't go around with all that. I think the only jewelry I ever wear is a clatter ring. I don't even wear a watch. Never did. Some of them guys, I look at some of them guys out in the town now with, I'm a ball buster. I said, you ever get a sore neck? What do you mean? I said, all that gold. Is never, wait, you know, because as soon as they come in the barroom, you know they're there. The big watches, the gold, everything hanging down. I said, yeah, they got about a year's shelf life before they get arrested. Yeah. You've seen them, you know what I'm talking, yeah. The guys that go to the track, they've been at the $2 window for 6 months. And then there's a big robbery someplace, and the next day they're at the $100 window. The cops sit there and watch. They wait for that. Yeah.